Hi everyone. I had intended to put a video out sooner than this, but had a couple rough days and just wanted to make sure that my head was clear and I was able to process my thoughts a little bit better. I wanted to go over today my experience leading up to chemo. 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I went back to the cancer center. And at that time, they placed a port in my chest, right in here. And that port can be accessed for my chemo, blood draws, basically anything you'd go into the vein for, you can go into the port for. The port's implanted there, and then there's a tube that runs into a vein that's close to my heart. That's the way I'll be getting my chemo. Tuesday of that week, I then went back to my oncologist and there was lab work done. The lab work was to kind of give a baseline of where I'm at as we move forward. So we have that good baseline and an indicator of where my health is at now. I also had an echocardiogram. Everything came back looking great. My echocardiogram was good, my heart's good, my blood work was really good. And so when I saw my oncologist on Tuesday, that was definitely the good news. Everything looked good starting out. She wanted to make sure that I understood that I was starting out with so many fewer problems than a lot of people have. I don't have a lot of issues. I'm very healthy, of course, other than cancer. And so I don't have the comorbidities that a lot of people do coming into this. So I'm very fortunate in that respect. What she wasn't really able to give me a clear picture of was what chemo would be like for me. Everybody responds differently. Our bodies react differently to things. And so there was no clear cut, this is what you can expect. So she gave the best answers that she could and tried to reassure me that everything would be okay. I then had to stay up in Phoenix for a couple of days just so that I could be there for my chemo. Chemo was on Thursday of that week. That morning was rough for me. I was scared. I didn't know what to expect. I was very teary and spent some time in the chapel just praying, meditating, trying to keep myself in that positive place where I need to be right now. And when I was called back for chemo, they did everything they could to, just make me feel comfortable. There was joking and laughter and everybody was so kind. I was still very nervous. Everything seemed to go well. There's several things that go on. There was one bag that was dripping, and I don't know exactly what these were. I probably should have asked more questions, maybe been better educated, but all I did was to know that I needed to be there and I need to do this. And so there was one bag, and that seemed to go fairly slowly. It dripped in fairly slowly, and I was also given steroids at the same time. I'm sure the steroids serve multiple purposes, but one of the things that they had brought up is helping with nausea. And then they came in with a very large syringe that had red fluid in it. They referred to it as red cocktail. And she said, we typically inject this in 3 to 5 minutes, just kind of depending. Not knowing how you're going to respond, we're going to go slowly with this. Now, at some point during this whole process, and I'm really not 100% clear of where this happened, all of a sudden I just got this really bad headache. Not sure what caused it, wasn't sure how long that would last, what could have been done differently to avoid that. I don't really know. But there was also a point where I was handed a cup of ice, and she said, now as we inject this, I need you to be eating the ice the whole time. I need you to keep your mouth wet, keep your mouth cold. We're avoiding you getting sores in your mouth. So just keep that ice going in, just keep crunching. I am not one that likes to crunch on ice. I am also not one that likes to deal with the consequences of not following instructions. And so I did my very best. I just kept the ice in my mouth. I kept crunching. I did everything that they asked me to do, and it seemed to go well. I did not end up with any sores in my mouth. Uh, and then when everything was done, the only thing I noticed was just something didn't feel right. But I didn't know for sure what it was. It was like, I just don't feel right. And the last thing they did was to take this injector. It's a Neulasta injector, and it's an auto injector. They said you can put this in your arms, you can put it in your belly, wherever you would prefer to have it. I went ahead and had the injector placed on my belly, simply because I knew it was going to be on overnight. I didn't want to roll on it when I was sleeping or have more challenges with my sleep than I already have. And I'm not a stomach sleeper, so I thought, well, maybe that'll work out well. So they put that in. It's set for 27 hours after your chemo to automatically inject at that time. And so by the time that was ready to happen, I was actually at home. We had traveled back home. And at that 27-hour point, it beeped just as they had said it would and started injecting. And all I could feel was just every once in a while, a slight little poke. But that was it. It wasn't bad at all. Well, until it stopped. About 2 minutes after it finished injecting, and before I had even gotten to the point of taking the injector off, I started to feel strange. And I kind of felt a little tightness in my throat, similar to what I've experienced with my shellfish allergy. And my heart kind of started to race a little bit, and I thought, wow, I don't feel very good. And so just having, the medical background that I do, I grabbed my pulse oximeter and my O2 sats, which are normally 98 to 99, were 93. And my heart rate, which is normally 55 to 58, was at 98. And I kind of started to get concerned. But then almost as quickly as it started, I began to feel better, and everything started to go back to normal. Not real quickly, but everything started going back to normal. I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't feel that same tightness. And so I wasn't sure if that was what other people experienced, but that was my experience at the moment. I removed the injector and just kind of went on as usual. I also had been given a bottle of dexamethasone, which is a steroid, and told to start that the day after my chemo for 3 days, 2 in the morning, 2 at night. Did that exactly as instructed. Also was told to take Claritin, the allergy medication, for 5 days, starting the day after my chemo. My understanding that the reason for all of this is the Neulasta is given to help build your blood cells back up as rapidly as possible. The Claritin is given to stop the bone pain that the Neulasta can cause. And that must have worked just fine. I didn't have any pain. The dexamethasone, from what I understand, is given to help with nausea. Well, Saturday went on. I started to feel a little more tired. Sunday, I was very fatigued. I felt confused. By Monday, I felt like I had, for lack of a better interpretation of this, I felt like I had the worst hangover you could possibly have. My head hurt so bad. I was so fuzzy about what was what. I was incredibly confused. I would shake and sweat. I didn't have issues with nausea or vomiting. Just shaking, sweating, the headache, the confusion. I just really, really was not feeling well. And I can remember at one point saying to my fiance, I understand now why people give up. I don't know if I can do this. But I also didn't know what to expect with any of this. I tried pushing through things that maybe I shouldn't have pushed through. Maybe there were times I should have laid down, and just being who I am and very independent and also very stubborn, I pushed through things that maybe I should not have. Tuesday, really rough, feeling really bad again. And then Tuesday evening, I almost felt like I could maybe eat something a little different than I had been. What I had found was the easiest for me to eat, and it wasn't because of nausea, it was just something that felt good. Warm foods they just didn't feel good. And I was having so much trouble with just feeling overheated anyways that I found that if I ate about 3 tablespoonfuls of cottage cheese about every couple hours, that I seemed to keep doing a little bit better. A little better. I just didn't feel quite as bad. I was getting something in my body. But by Tuesday evening, I was like, maybe I can eat a little of something else. And so I had a little food, and not too long after I ate, all of a sudden, I just started the shaking and the sweating, just drenched in sweat. And I laid down on the floor, and my fiance said, "Do I need to call 911?" And no. But he helped me up, got me into bed, put an ice pack on my head, and just kept coming in and checking on me. We were pushing the fluids. I did do really well with getting fluids into me. And so he just, came in to make sure, getting your fluids. Are you doing okay? Just talk to me a little bit. And about 8:30, which would have been probably a couple hours after this all started, all of a sudden, I felt so much better. I felt clear again. I felt like I could coherently make sentences again. And I didn't feel so confused. I also noticed that it was like a hypersensitivity to everything. When someone would talk, it sounded like it was coming from down a tunnel and just echoing. And that was much, much better. Not completely gone, but much better. The feel of my own hair against my skin was almost painful, and that was better. And so I thought, oh, I feel better now. And I sat up for a little while. I watched TV. It's like, okay, this is good. But still not knowing what happens with this, I was not certain that this was long term. And went to bed, got a decent night's sleep for the first time since the chemo. I didn't have nightmares. That was the other thing that I've experienced with this. I don't really dream that much at all, but I had the most horrible nightmares until finally that night I did a little bit better. I still had some strange dreams, but it wasn't the same. Uh, Wednesday, I felt like a whole new me. Still a little, weak, tired, not 100%, but so much better. And as the week progressed, I just got better and better. And I saw that as being such an amazing thing because I can deal with anything. I know I can. But knowing what I'm dealing with makes it so much easier. And so that was my chemo experience. I did follow up last Thursday with my oncologist. I went in and she wanted to do a quick breast exam, look at my labs again, kind of get my feedback on how things went. And when they did my lab work, she says, your lab work, of course, it's not what it was. It's not what it was, but it is what we would expect it to be. So that was great. I knew that they were going to see changes in the lab work, but knowing that what they were seeing was what they would expect to be was very helpful. I went through my experience with her, and one of the things that has been decided is they will probably inject the chemo a little bit slower to try to help with the headache. We're also going to be cutting my steroid down, so I'm not taking as much, as that could have created some of the problem. I'm very sensitive to medications. I have rarely in my life ever been sick. I didn't catch colds very often. I had what I believe was the flu one time in my entire life. I just haven't dealt with what it's like to be sick. And so this is all such a new experience. I am really glad that we're going to try cutting the steroids back a little bit to see if that's helpful. I also think knowing that there are certain foods that just make me feel better. If I have to eat 3 tablespoons of cottage cheese every 2 hours for those days, that's fine. That's fine. So I think I learned some things through this that hopefully will help my next experience to be better. I also have learned that I don't have to be tough every day. I don't have to be superwoman every day. I do need to know when to just lay down, when to rest, and when to do what I want to do. I love my job and I have such great flexibility there that I've been able to work through chemo and intend to keep doing that. I just want to once again say I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here with me on this journey. And I hope to continue giving some more support for those who may be going through the same thing and letting people know that there's going to be good days and bad days, but this isn't a death sentence. And I'm just so happy, so grateful for each and every day that I get. Thank you all so much. I love each and every one of you. Have an amazing rest of your day.